I was married at the time, and after I had been married for about 2 years, I found out my husband was having an affair with a 19-year-old for 6 months. And I filed for divorce, left. Shortly after that, I met a man who was a pretty well-known actor in LA, and we had this kind of whirlwind romance that was like, meet my family, I'm gonna have babies with this person. And he invited me to come with him on a month-long trip to Italy. 48 hours before we were getting on the plane, he told me he needed to go by himself and broke up with me. And I was absolutely devastated. This man broke my heart like my ex-husband never could have done. So I lost my dad when I was 7 years old, pretty traumatically. I walked in and found him dead on the floor from a heart attack. It really instilled in my little girl, when I love someone, they die. And when I love someone, they leave. When I got to high school, my high school sweetheart was killed in a car accident when I was 18. And that kind of ripped that same abandonment wound open, which was like, when I love someone, they leave, so that I could learn that lesson and wake up and heal that.
Hello and welcome to Elevated Conversations. In this conversation, we speak with Gabrielle Stone and we hear her story of heartbreak, of dealing with troubled relationships, yet navigating through the pattern of those to coming out the other side and feeling happiness and fulfillment, and how this whole journey took her around the world to so many different interesting countries and getting fascinating insights into herself as she healed. And now she shares that wisdom with you guys. Hope you enjoy the chat with Gabrielle Stone.
Welcome, Gabrielle Stone, to our Elevated Conversations podcast. It's wonderful to have you here.
Thank you so much for having me. I'm excited to be here.
So tell us about yourself. How did you get into this awakening realm? You've got a podcast, you've got a book that you've created, so much creation coming through your vessel. We'd love to hear your story.
Yeah, so I started off acting in LA. I had just started directing and was really focused on becoming an actress. That was my passion and what I wanted to do in life. And I was married at the time. And after I had been married for about 2 years, I found out my husband was having an affair with a 19-year-old for 6 months. And I filed for divorce, left. Shortly after that, I met a man who was a pretty well-known actor in LA, and we had this kind of whirlwind romance that was like, meet my family, I'm going to have babies with this person, like we're done, signed, sealed, delivered. And it seemed like it was this like epic fairy tale of course I had to get divorced because look what was waiting for me on the other side. And he invited me to come with him on a month-long trip to Italy. 48 hours before we were getting on the plane, he told me he needed to go by himself and broke up with me. And I was absolutely devastated. This man broke my heart like my ex-husband never could have done. And I was sitting in my childhood bedroom at my mother's house, because that's where you move when you're 28 and get divorced. And I was sitting there with a bottle of wine in a pool of tears and was like, okay, well, I have a decision to make. I can either stay at home heartbroken or I can go travel Europe for a month by myself. So I took my backpack and did 6 countries over the span of a month. And I wrote my book, Eat, Pray, FML.
I love that. I'm so sorry to hear your story too, though. Oh my goodness.
It was very much so all worth it. And I would do it all again 10 times over to end up where I'm at now. So
yeah. So it was a catalyst for a deeper an awakening. And were you spiritual before that, or were you just in, the world of the matrix, where, working 9 to 5 and just, living what we call a sleep slumby life? Or were you?
I mean, my mom is very spiritual. Apart from being an actress, she's a world-renowned healer. So I grew up with a lot of discussions about subconscious beliefs and how to clear those. So I was always very in the know of healing, but this was definitely like my big, dark night of the soul coming to light, like big catalyst for my own personal healing journey, that would really not only change me as a person, but would change the entire path of my career and my life.
Yeah, totally.
And the theories and strategies are great too, until it actually goes down for you, when you actually are in the situation. And so often it can be like, You know, if you're not careful, we can be human and go, screw all this. I'm going to grab a bottle of wine and hide in the room and F everyone, and, etc.
100%. And it's totally okay to have those moments because, as you said, they're human and we are human. And they're never fun going through them. I'm a big believer in everything happens for a reason. And even when I could in that moment see the reasons that it was all happening, it didn't make it fun. I was still like, F this with a bottle of wine.
And, I love that point where you believe everything's happening for a reason, because we are such big believers of that as well. It's like every single thing is happening for you, either for a positive, enlightening moment or another enlightening moment of growth in the lesson. So recently in times, with your law of attraction, how are you finding the frequency now that you've kind of come out of that dark night of the soul?
I think it's really interesting. It's something that I feel is a day-to-day practice that you have to be aware of. Especially, I'm a new mom, coming up on a year. So it's
Lovely.
really like managing the hormones and getting rebalanced with everything. A lot of stuff happens around us that can pull us out of our creation process and make us question the things that are happening. And a really good friend of mine recently reminded me that even the things that are frustrating you in your life, or the things that you think aren't working, or people that aren't working fast enough in certain situations, like you've created and attracted all of that as well, whether it's to look at the situation and be like, oh, this is not what I want. Let me redirect that energy into creating something different. Or if it's meant to teach you a lesson in some other capacity. So it's really for me been checking in with myself consistently to make sure I'm sending out that energy in the right way for what I want to be creating.
Because we are the creators of our vortex,
Yep.
and it's like, when you're like, damn it, I created this, those moments.
Yes,
So,
very much so. And it's about taking responsibility for, even the negative stuff. It's like, okay, I had some type of way that I created this. So like, let's learn the lessons from it, because otherwise it's happening for nothing.
That's right.
and it might happen again. That's it. That's
Right.
right.
Break the pattern, break the pattern.
So tell me, have you ever, and I have no idea whether you've ever done, mushrooms or psychedelics, or, been sitting in contemplation, but have you ever tried to see the deeper joining of the dots? Have you ever sort of gone, let down by the masculine energy? Is there something deeper here underneath, for myself, how I am around masculine energy? Or maybe this isn't even mine, it's a past life thing, or something in, the lineage of the family on my mother's side or my father's side. Have you had any insights into deeper things like that?
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, yes, I have dabbled in different psychedelics. I write about a mushroom trip that happened in Thailand in my second book. But for me, this healing journey was very obvious when I looked back at my track record. So I lost my dad when I was 7 years old, pretty traumatically. I walked in and found him dead on the floor from a heart attack. And in that moment, it really instilled in my little girl, when I love someone, they die. And when I love someone, they leave.
Mm.
Um, when I got to high school, my high school sweetheart was killed in a car accident when I was 18. And that kind of ripped that same abandonment wound open, which was like, when I love someone, they leave. So I had this fear of abandonment that I was walking around with. And subconsciously, unknowingly, I was attracting these men into my life that would abandon me in some way, shape, or form. My ex-husband in the form of cheating, and the man after in the form of literally abandoning me before we got on this plane. So that I could learn that lesson and wake up and heal that. So this trip, and the fact that it happened in the way that it did for me to go across the world on my own and learn how to actually be by myself, was exactly what I needed at that time to heal that abandonment wound that had been with me for so many years. So very much so, the deeper meanings were coming forward on that journey.
Yeah, I love that.
Oh,
We've gotten deep on that one.
you
We
got
love a good deep like analogy and people finding the root cause. That's what we're all about.
it shines in you, right?
Yeah.
Like I can just tell, we speak to lots of people. You can tell that you've gone in there and that you can speak openly, right, about that lesson
Yeah.
and go there. That's part of being healed, as you can talk about it. If people go, yeah, some stuff happened when I was young, but I don't want to go there. It's like, oh,
Yeah.
really? You know?
And
Yeah.
that's okay as well.
But so well done for you for going there, because it's difficult. But
Thank you.
once you see this pattern and you can retell it so beautifully, that is so beneficial to people who would be watching this. Now, let's face it, there's a lot of people who have been let down in relationships. This relationship
Yeah.
area is a huge, huge topic. What do you say to people who are in relationships and feel like stuck or stale? Like it's the passion's not there like it used to be, but they've worked themselves into a corner and they're stuck. How do you kind of deal with that?
Well, I would say if you're in a committed relationship that you feel bored in or isn't fulfilling you, I want to remind people like you're always allowed to leave if you want to. You don't need a reason other than you're unhappy. And I feel like so many people have this fear of shame around divorce. I'm really proud of the fact that I'm divorced, that I walked away and got out of such a bad situation before it got even worse. Um, and I know there's different complications with kids and finances, but every family that I have talked to that has been like, oh, we stayed for the kids. When the kids grow up, they're like, we wish you wouldn't have. Like, you guys were miserable. We all knew it. We saw it. So I would say, if it's a big decision like that, to like do what makes you happy, but also recognize within yourself what type of relationship you've attracted and if there's a pattern in that. So many times people will DM me and they're like, I keep attracting these narcissistic assholes and like everybody's like horrible and I keep getting cheated on. And I'm like, okay, that sucks. You don't deserve that, of course. But if there's a pattern there, there's something within you that's attracting those people. So you're going to keep attracting those people until you point the finger back at yourself and figure out what you need to fix and get into alignment and heal before you're going to attract the men that are amazing and always take care of you and like never abandon you. So it's about taking responsibility and knowing very clearly of what you want to attract so that you can break that pattern of the toxic stuff you've been attracting in the past.
Yeah, totally. I love that. And it's so true. Like so many people just stay because it's more comfortable. They don't want to have to even acknowledge it to like the school community if they've got kids or, have to break
Right.
down a house mortgage, but they're just inside a house living numb and no spark in their relationship. And we feel like if there is an opportunity to get out and, start to look at those inner feelings and the root causal emotion. We're so like loving that you're on the same radio station there with that, because we're big believers that everything is attracting for us to elevate and grow. And, when we do have an awakening, we're often not the person that we are, we've got so many layers. So we're in a marriage and a relationship. Luckily for Pete and I, we've somehow managed to stay together through our awakening. There's been some hairy moments, but, once we learned that it's not them, it's us, and turn the finger back around to discover, okay, what's within us that's making me triggered when he does that. Right. And I've got a very similar story to you about, losing my father around the age of 8. And then feeling rejected by men over and over and over. So I can understand where your pattern is and what it is as well. But fortunately, I realized that was me, and I was already in the relationship when we had our awakening. So once I learned the technique of just going in, I think that's a big game changer for relationships. Like if anyone's listening to this, it's like you want to blame the other person and tell them that it's all their fault, but you have to turn it around to yourself.
Yeah, absolutely. And that's not to say that if there's no spark or you feel bored, that can't be worked on and fixed and recreated and reignited. That like absolutely. I just believe that both people in the relationship have to be willing to come to the table to do that, and to want that, while you're going through your healing journeys.
Yeah, awesome. And what about those people that, have an awakening and then they go on their solo journey? How do you see that? Any tips that you can recommend for people that are almost like doing it solo and not really interested in a relationship because, I'm doing it all by myself. How do you perceive that?
I think the more time you can spend alone with yourself and get to know who you are, the better you will be if you eventually want to be in a relationship with someone else. And solo travel is one of the best ways to do that. Taking that first solo trip for me made me realize how capable I am by myself, that I didn't need other people to take care of me. I got to meet myself in an entirely new way than I ever had before. So often when we're in our homes, we're never really alone. We're like scrolling on TikTok and watching Netflix or doing both simultaneously. And it's like you're never really truly just by yourself with your thoughts, journaling, like really truly getting to know who you are as a person. And for me, it was so life changing to take that trip. So I always encourage people to, like, you don't have to go to Europe for a month. You can go to the next town over for a weekend. You can take like a camping trip. Like it just go and be somewhere by yourself and get to know who you are and be comfortable and proud of that person. Because then when you come to the table to be potentially in a relationship, you can really present as the person that you want to be.
Beautiful. I love that. So tell us about your book. What's in it? And what inspired? I'm guessing all of this travel by yourself has inspired the sharing of your story. What are some other things in your book that you have that sparks the interest of the readers?
I mean, it's really my story. It starts with my marriage ending and finding like all the details about the affair and how that went down. It was like an episode of CSI. And then falling in love with the man after, and that whole whirlwind of a relationship, the heartbreak, and going on the trip. The best way I can describe the book is it feels like you're sitting down to share a bottle of wine with me while I tell you about my insane story and then take you on an adventure across Europe with me. Um, but as much fun as it is, you're going on this big healing journey because I'm doing all this work on myself and really like discussing all these beliefs that are coming up and how I'm working through them. And people are enjoying the read, but being like, oh, like I resonate with that. Oh God, like that's something that I do. So it's really a self-help book without feeling or looking like a self-help book, in a very fun way.
It sounds like a glass of wine I'd like to have, right? Like sitting and because I'm sure that I could just tell from talking to you, there'd be humor in there. There would be, laughing at yourself, laughing at the world, as well as some gems of wisdom in there that, particularly for a person who's going through this challenging sort of thing, like relationships are hard. They can
Yeah.
be, particularly the breakups and the putting it all
Yep.
back together. And
Yeah.
the growing on the self, if you're like brutally honest with yourself, the vulnerabilities underneath the surface layer that everyone's got, when we can
Yep.
go in there as, let's call it guides, and help people to learn to navigate what's underneath the surface stuff. Because whenever we're
Yeah.
frustrated or irritated or whatever, it's not that. There's something deeper. I think that would be great to have there in the book. I'm interested though about this book too, number 2, with this mushroom journey in it in Thailand.
Yeah.
I have been fortunate enough to always dodge being in that situation in Thailand, but I've been to Thailand. Tell me a little bit about that. I'm curious. What happened in Thailand?
Well, when I got back from my Europe trip, and I ended up publishing the book, everybody that started reading it was like, oh my God, okay, but what happened after Europe? And so I knew I was probably eventually going to write a sequel, but I was still living my life of what that would be. So I didn't know what exactly the second book looked like. and I decided to take a second solo trip to Southeast Asia. I started in Vietnam, ended up in Thailand, and then finished in Bali. And we were in Thailand at this like really awesome hostel, and especially up in Pai, up in the north, mushrooms are a very big thing there, but it's done very spiritually. So
Mm.
it was me and two of my hostel mates that I became really good friends with, and this other girl who worked at the hostel kind of did this whole ceremony for us, and it was like very thoughtful and like intention setting, and like, you know, you're going on a spiritual quest type of trip. And it was wild. It was absolutely wild. But
I
it
thought
was an experience where I was able to really tap into some emotions that I think my conscious mind was trying to push away to protect my heart. And it allowed me to like get deeper and get my conscious mind out of the way to tap into some of that.
Mm. I thought you were going to tell us that you had mushrooms on the beach at a full moon party. And I was,
No, it was very much not that vibe.
oh, that's so good to hear. These beautiful places that are sharing these medicines and these circles. I know Bali has been, one of those countries that you can really go and eat, pray, and love, and sit in silence. And there's silent retreats. Have you done anything like that in Bali before?
Yeah, when I went to Bali, I did the silent retreat for, I think it was three nights and 3 days. And it was the people that go for 10, I salute them. It was definitely an interesting, difficult, but lovely experience. I loved not having a phone and just having a book or my journal, and the yoga in the morning and the meditation sessions. But I definitely value human connection and conversation and
Mm.
music and things like that I missed when I was in there.
Yeah, I don't know if I could do a silent retreat. I think I'd be like giggling too much and like be like, oh, and accidentally talk.
I mean, they don't reprimand you for talking. There were people that were there together, like in groups, and they would, quietly whisper in different places. It wasn't like a rule, but it was
Okay.
there to like allow you to disconnect.
Yeah.
I love the idea of book two being the continuation of your story, because I would love to hear, like logically you get to that point and what next? And going through Asia compared to Europe would have a completely different feel to it, I'm sure. The energy being
Completely.
different, people being different, and the spirituality of the place versus Europe. Could you give us your
Yeah.
reflection on that? How did you find, let's say the East versus, I know it's corny saying the West, but you get the idea, right? Of the
Yeah.
Europeans' view on spirituality versus, let's say, in Asia, how they view it and look at it. That would be an interesting reflection. How did you go with that?
I mean, they're completely separate parts of the world. They're completely different in so many aspects. For me personally, on the journey that I was on, I think for Europe, I was very much in a state of heartbreak, and there was a lot more partying that happened in Europe on that trip. Some bad decisions, but like as far as the spirituality and the reflecting, it was more of kind of like breaking down the toxic patterns that I've had in my life, and like trying to figure out why I had gotten to the place I was at. And I think by the time I went to Asia, I was in more of a place where I was doing soul searching. Like it was more, how can I like go inward and further the healing that I've done and further the person that I'm becoming. So they were different because I was different, I
Mm.
guess is the best answer for me.
Mm.
Yeah. And what a perfect place to do second, Asia, because the people I've noticed are very loving, they're open, their spirituality is integrated into their life a whole lot more.
Yeah.
Mm.
Hmm.
And I have actually never been to Europe. I've been to Africa and all through Asia and, to the United States, of course, etc. But never to like London. I've never stood in a pub and had a beer and all those things. Yet Roxy's been right through that area and often reflects to me about how she notices the people being different. Bali's a very special place to us. So these journeys, this wisdom that you've had, often I've noticed people who've seen the world have a lot less fear of the world. Going out and exploring different cultures, different people. There's
Yeah.
often there's less judgment and all of that. Do you feel like traveling for you helped you grow as a person? Was that one of the keys?
Oh, 100%. The solo travel specifically made me realize that I'm very capable on my own and I don't need people around me to keep me safe or to do things with me. And it also made me realize that I'm never truly abandoned because I will never abandon myself. And that was a huge lesson from that first trip that really changed my life. But as far as like on a not healing level and just a growth level, it's so important to see outside of your bubble. I remember when I was on that Europe trip, I was like, how am I going to go back to Los Angeles? This is ridiculous. Like, I mean, not that I was like not well traveled before. I've traveled, over my entire life, but mostly more like vacations and stuff. But I was like, I want to move to Europe. And then I went to Asia. I was like, I could live in Thailand. Like it's such a wonderful thing to be able to meet people while you're traveling because you don't have that wall up that, presents a certain way and you get to connect with people so much quicker. And it just really gives you this different perspective of like being able to zoom out because our world that we live in on a day-to-day basis is so small. It's almost overwhelming when you think about how big and how expansive it can be. So when I get overwhelmed at home, I really try and remember to zoom out and remember how much is going on in the world and out there, and just know that the little things you're not going to be worrying about in a day, a week, a year.
It's
Wow.
so expansive traveling. When I was 19, I traveled over to Europe as well for a couple of years. And when I got home, it was just realizing and seeing another perspective of how people keep in their bubbles, like the social circles. It's like if there's a new person, no one really welcomes them. But if you've traveled, it's kind of like, hey, come sit with us. Like there's so much more, I guess, connection with diversity, with different
Yeah.
personalities. Because, in Europe, you're kind of, a lot of people are traveling in Europe and, everyone's looking for someone to talk to. So they kind of get along. So I totally agree with how it gets you more streetwise and it gets you more
Hmm.
globally like aware of the different like types of people even because, when we're in America, just recently and we were getting ready to come home, we really missed home. We started to think, oh, these people, that a lot of Americans have not traveled outside of America. And,
Yeah.
and I started to think they don't really know what they're missing out on because they don't know. They don't know what they don't know. They've just stayed in their little bubbles. And I'm
Right.
sure you see that living in LA, like a lot of people are just like stuck in this energy that is almost like keeping them there, if that makes sense. Do you feel that energy
Yeah.
in LA?
I do. I think there's like I mean, I kind of think it's all of the US, but very much so in LA, there's a hustle culture where it's like go, go, go. And like, got to make sure everybody's like booking the next job and, you know, making enough money and doing the things and moving forward. And my husband and I talk about that quite often, that we wouldn't have that if we, popped over to Portugal or moved somewhere that was outside of the US where everything wasn't so insanely expensive. And so yeah, I think about it often. I've grown up in LA. It's my home. I love my actual home where we live. But I can't say that that is not a conversation that happens probably once a week.
Really?
Wow, that's
Wow.
interesting.
Really? And you've got the little one.
I haven't been to Australia yet. It's on my list, although I'm not sure about your guys' spiders, I have to say. Other than that, I'm like ready to come visit, but
It's so funny how everyone's like afraid of spiders and snakes. I think like they just walk through our house all the time, but that's not the case.
well, there you've seen videos of like the giant ones up in the corner, and I'm like, I just can't do that. But you know, I will make it there eventually. It's on my list.
It's so true. All my US friends are always sending me these memes of spiders and the snakes and the this. They go, oh, we'd visit, but I don't know if we can handle it. And I'm sitting there, I'm like, it's not like we step over them day after day. Um, it's like the marketing team of those spiders, whatever's going,
Right.
got good
Well,
marketing.
they wanted to keep all the Americans out of Australia is what they
Oh,
wanted to do. And they're doing a good job.
they're doing a great job. They're doing a great job. Now, tell us, now that you're married and you were saying baby's just about to go one, is that correct?
Yeah. Yep.
Oh,
Oh, wow.
Absolutely insane. It's true what they say. The days are long and the years are short. It like feel like we blinked and he's already like walking around and like a whole toddler. It's crazy.
oh, it's so good having little boys. What's his name?
His name is Stone.
Stone. Wow, that's beautiful. I love that. And how are you
Thank you.
enjoying being a mother and moving into that divine feminine energy?
I love it. It's been really amazing. I'm obsessed with him, and it's been very interesting to watch the conflict within myself of like, oh my God, I can't wait till he goes down for a nap because I just want to sit down and like do nothing for a second. And the second he's asleep, I'm like, oh, I can't wait to wake him up. I miss him so much. And especially for me, the juxtaposition of like working and being with him. You know, we just took this big trip to Portugal, which was a huge undertaking. And the first week of that, 24 of my readers came to meet me there and travel with me. So my husband came, the baby came, and it was a lot. It was fulfilling and amazing, but it was a lot. And I knew that the next couple of trips that I do like this, where my readers come and like meet and travel with me, that I needed to go by myself. And I was like, there's a little bit of freedom in that of like, oh, it's going to be so fun and so fulfilling and amazing. And it's work. And on the flip side of that, I was like, how am I going to leave my kid for a week? It's a very strange thing to navigate because I am very passionate about my work and there's so much more that I want to do in my career. And I will always put time and energy into that because I love myself and I will do that for myself. But I'm always pulled now in that other direction of wanting to be mom and be there and hang. So it's been interesting to navigate that.
Mm.
But all in all, it's amazing. I mean, he's such a light and is such a character, and I see so much of both my husband and I in him, and it's been so awesome to watch him grow over the past year. It's been a whole new chapter, but I am glad that I waited until I did to do it.
Right, right. Yeah. It's such a blessing having children. It's like, you really open your eyes to the human experience and what's so precious. It does open your heart in so many ways having a child. And I totally
Yes.
get the mum juggle. Like we've done that. We had, an insurance business before our awakening, and we had a cot room and two babies, a nanny and all the whole thing. And I was trying to have it all. And then one day I went, you know what are we doing? So we sold the business, and then that sparked our awakening. So I totally understand that, the feeling of feeling torn, whether you bring the kids with you or you leave
Yeah.
them and then you miss them and the work. But it's all, I think, just to really find the balance in it and enjoy every
Yeah.
aspect of it. And this shall pass too, those hard afternoons when it's witching hour and you're just thinking, I've got to write that email back, but my child's like being difficult here. And, just like a journey. It's a journey, like a plant medicine, a dark night of the soul in a way that you just got to get through the moments of it. So beautiful. Thank you for sharing. And thanks for coming on the
Yeah.
podcast today. Yeah.
Oh, thank you. I appreciate it. Yeah, it's been just a constant reminder to just try and stay present and ride the wave.
Totally. Totally. So where can everyone find you, Gabrielle? You're on Instagram
So,
and yep.
yeah, I'm on Instagram at Gabrielle Stone and TikTok at Gabrielle_Stone. If you guys want to check out the book, it's called Eat, Pray, FML. It's available on Amazon, or you can get it signed by me on the website. Although shipping to Australia is kind of a ridiculous amount, but it's eatprayfml.com. And then the second book is called The Ridiculous Misadventures of a Single Girl, and that's also available on Amazon or on the website. And then I have a podcast called FML Talk that airs every Wednesday, and we dive into healing and relationships and all the things, but like, with some F bombs and some fun stuff
Some wine.
sprinkled throughout.
Uh,
Yeah,
And I really feel like a lot of our listeners are going to resonate with you because you're real and you're fun and you have an energy that you are what your message is, if you get what I mean. I always
yeah,
love that
thank you for
saying
that.
about authenticity. It comes through with you.
Oh,
So
thank you for that. That's such a great compliment. I appreciate that. I have a lot of FMLers that are based out of Australia that I get messages from. So hopefully one day there will be enough that I can use it as an excuse to head over there and dodge the spiders and have a trip to Australia.
absolutely. So the tip would be come in winter because the spiders all hide in winter. So
Perfect.
there you go. There's a little bit of information. But listen,
Great.
it's congratulations on to your journey. As one person to another going, you've navigated difficulty, you've come out the other side, and it's obvious that your relationship with yourself has improved and you're really now taking that healing and you're elevating others. And on behalf of Roxy and myself, I want to say thank you for that, for the work that you're putting out there for humanity. We really appreciate it.
Thank you. Thank you so
And
much. I really appreciate that.
look, we'll collab. We'll get more FMLers down here in Australia so
Yes.
you can swim in the sea and have some fun and visit us in Australia. Great to talk to you
I
today.
would
Thanks for
love
coming.
that. Thanks, guys. I appreciate it.